Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Hey everybody, come on into the studio while we get ready for the show. Now today we're going to be talking about what to do when you feel like you're going at it alone in retirement. But first, let's get to our TNT for today, okay? Today's TNT comes to us from Rob in Seymour, Indiana. Tony, several years ago I retired from work. At that time, I did not have an advisor, so I decided to attend a local dinner seminar on retirement. Shortly after attending, I decided to roll my 401k over to the advisor who hosted it, but since then have not heard from him and feel lost as to what to do next. What would you say to that? You know, that's actually a really good question. So what would you say to that, Tony?
Sounds like to me he's bowling alone.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Well, welcome, folks, to the WorryFree Retirement. And yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and full-time fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we make sure you're not going it alone with this thing called retirement, let me introduce two young lads in the WorryFree production studios who are never going to go it alone when it comes to the production of this show each week. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orender, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. And to help us introduce today's topic on why savers do not need to be bowling it alone when it comes to planning for retirement, let me introduce to you in the WorryFree studios my favorite son-in-law and fellow fiduciary. Come on again, Mr. Trey Juergens. Good morning, Trey.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
And this is becoming more and more of a common occurrence. And I'm serious when I say this. I've had more and more people who I meet with who really appreciate the fact that we are trying to feature you, Heather, Wes, all of the staff. And I think it just reminds them that there is a whole lot more than meets the eye than just Tony Walker on this TV show. So thanks again for cooperating and for all the staff at Tony Walker Financial willing to be on TV. In fact, we've got TJ Reagan, who's going to be on a little while, talking about a milestone we've hit, which is really exciting. But address this book, Bowling Alone, which is an interesting book. Have you ever read it?
I think I've read the cliff notes. I get the gist of it. But no, I think when you apply that to these folks that we see coming in, a lot of the time they have statements, they've bought products, but they have no idea what to do with any of it. So they really are just going it alone.
Well, and it's pretty scary, folks, because in retirement, I think what's happened is because this, we've talked about it before, 10,000 people turning 65 every day. The financial world knows that. They're licking their chops. We're going to talk about dinner seminars coming back at full force. And these pearl savers, they're desperate. They got to get some help. They got these 401k plans, and maybe they hear a good enticement or a great sales pitch, and then we see them 2 or 3 years later, and they're like, we have no game plan. We don't know what we're doing, and the poor advisors a lot of times aren't even around either. So there they are bowling it alone when it comes to the retirement. So what have you seen over the last couple of years as you meet with more and more people and the reaction they have when we sit down to really do a thorough analysis?
Well, having been with the firm 7.5 years now, when I first learned the process and how you lay out income plans, I thought that was the norm in our industry. And
in other words, everybody else was doing it.
I thought that's exactly what you did. As a retirement planner, you had to show them exactly what they would be investing in, take realistic assumptions on rate of return, show them how they're distributing those funds over their entire lifetime, how they're not going to run out of money. That made a lot of sense. But when I kind of have the privilege of seeing a lot of folks come on board as new clients, helping collect statements, helping better understand what we're going to be putting them into. And then I have that delivery appointment, which we give that final binder. And when we give this binder, it's the cherry on top. It's exactly the way that I learned how to put this stuff together. And it's not the norm. It's not what we see out there.
In fact, and again, it may exist. I mean, we see a lot of people trade, but I know there's thousands of advisors out there. It may exist, but I've still never seen it. And I've now met with close to 20,000 savers. I've seen a lot of people, and you have too. In fact, that binder, you referenced that. It's kind of funny. We've had a lot of people over the years, and it's fine. I guess imitation is the greatest form of flattery,
right,
who have tried to duplicate what we do. Somebody came in the other day, this was hilarious, and they had been working with an advisor. They hadn't seen the advisor in several years. The advisor had promised them that they were going to help them on taxes. Well, they moved over a bunch of money. They said, we haven't seen anything in terms of tax planning. We got this binder. That's pretty nice. Let me look at it. And it started looking just like ours, but there was one thing missing in the binder that advisor provided them that wasn't in there that was all important. What do you think was missing?
No game plan.
No game plan. And then what was interesting, I got out the tax return, and I said, let me see your taxes here. And I'm looking through there, and I went, ouch. I said, you had a huge capital gain here. Were you aware of that? And he goes, what's a capital gain? No, I don't know what you're talking about. So I started digging through the statements. The advisor had also moved over an after-tax account, created over $17,000 in capital gains. And I went back. I said, where did you find out who this advisor was? They said, we attended a seminar.
Of course.
What was the seminar on? This was hilarious. Tax planning for the future. So I said, so you're paying more in taxes since you visited the advisor, not less, and you have no game plan. So it's kind of interesting. A couple of key points here. So what would be some examples? I just came up with a few, and let's speak to these. You might say, well, how do you know you're bowling alone when it comes to your retirement? Your advisor rarely speaks to you or tends to speak over your head. How many of our saver clients have responded that way when they've met with an advisor and just basically, I don't seem to understand what they're even talking about?
All the time. We had someone just join on as a client. She kind of hesitated for a while to move because every time she'd speak to that advisor, they would really kind of talk down to her. You don't know what you're doing. There's no reason you should be moving these. But she never had any advice or planning, so she decided to come on board with us.
So she was already meeting with us. She had, I guess, told the advisor, in other words, she was going to move, and they were trying to talk her out of it.
Oh, yeah.
But no game plan, so it's okay. Here's another one. Whenever you withdraw money from your advisor or financial institution, they either look at you like you're crazy or they kind of hesitate to send you your own money back. How often does that happen?
It's constant. We lay these plans out in a manner to distribute these funds. And I think TJ will allude to the fact all this money that's come in, there's a lot of money that goes out, and that's by design. But a lot of time when these advisors are asked for distributions, they see that as their money, not the client's money.
And it does cost the advisor. Yeah, you got to remember, folks, and we're happy to send money out, but it costs us because that's no more money we can't advise on and collect fees on. That's how the game works. This is, I guess, the third point here I want to make. It seems to be when people feel like they really are going it alone is only when the advisor contacts them, not to just see how they're doing or do you need money or whatever, but to sell them something. Mm-hmm. How often does that come up?
Every day. It's a product, not a process. And laying out the worry-free retirement process, it's to better understand what they need, not plugging in a product that's going to be the one-size-fits-all.
And if we do recommend a product, in a lot of cases, sometimes the products will actually save them money. I know since interest rates have gone up, we've been replacing some of the assets, not all, but we've been going into some of our Schwab portfolios, which we get 0.8%, and we're replacing some of that money with 5-year MYGAs. Those are high-interest annuities. Had a fellow the other day, he goes, boy, I bet you're making a lot of money on this. I said, actually, this is going to cost us money. He said, well, how so? And I said, well, sir, if we're taking $100,000, that's 0.8% for the next 5 years, we're going to make $4,000. If we move it to an annuity, it won't cost you a penny. They're going to pay us a commission of about $2,000, but we're one and done. And he said, man, I never thought about that. So not only are we locking in interest rates, we're saving them fees, and that's what a fiduciary is supposed to do, is look out for their best interest.
Yeah.
I want to share something with you, and I think we'll probably break here. I want to go to a next segment to cover this, but just to prove that this whole thing about taxes, Trey, we know the tax laws expire in 2025. Big deal, folks, but also advisors know it's a big deal. This was a dinner seminar invitation one of my clients received, and they said, Tony, I want to see if you can help me with some of this stuff. And I said, let me see that dinner seminar invitation from this advisor. Look at the headline. It says, How to Lower and Even Eliminate Taxes in Retirement. So, Trey, I guess not only do you get a steak dinner, but can you imagine if you could eliminate taxes? Wow, that would be something, wouldn't it?
There you have a lineup 65.
So, folks, when we come back, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the monitor. I'm going to go over this in detail, and we're going to look at the bullet points this advisory firm is talking about in the way of saving on taxes some of the products they're going to be selling you if you attend this dinner seminar, and why you still want to make sure, no matter who you meet with, that they're going to promise you a written game plan that you can monitor long into the future. Stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back.
This Better Business Bureau spotlight comes to us from Brad. I've been retired for 2 years and my wife is still working but still trying to decide her retirement date. I began talking to financial advisors around 2 years before I actually did retire. I had talked with 3 other companies besides Tony Walker Financial. I decided to go with Tony Walker Financial because I was more comfortable with the way they laid out our income plan and how our money would be distributed through retirement. My wife and I also like the fact that even though Mr. Walker is roughly our age, Tony Walker Financial seems structured very well, and we have mainly been dealing with advisors he has in place that should be around throughout our retirement. They've been very flexible and receptive to us changing dates and information in our plan and them making adjustments, and have been very responsive to any questions that we have concerning our plan. So far, we've been very happy with Tony Walker Financial. For more information, visit TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 877-499-9255.
In keeping in step that so many savers have decided not to bowl alone with their money and turn that money over to Tony Walker Financial, I want to turn to our own TJ Reagan, who came up with an interesting statistic in terms of the amount of money that has flowed into Tony Walker Financial from all of these savers.
That's right, Tony. While updating our database of all of our clients and their accounts, I ran a report that revealed that Tony Walker Financial has received over $1 billion, that's billion with a B, of new assets, with those being divided between investments and annuities. That's a huge deal for Tony Walker Financial and a true testament to how much our customers really trust us, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, we certainly do. Thank you, TJ. And for those of you who have trusted your money to Tony Walker Financial, we appreciate it very much. Having worked in the retirement planning field for 40 years, I know it's not just about how much money you've saved for retirement, but making sure you one day don't run out of money. That's where mailbox money comes in.
Mailbox money!
A reliable, lifelong income, much like the pension plans from the past. If you're interested in turning your 401k into mailbox money, let's talk. Just set up your free 10-minute phone call with myself at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. As we record this show in July of 2024, one of the more sensitive topics out there for savers, and it should be, is the idea of taxes and how much in taxes you're going to owe on that tax-infested 401k, IRA, TSP, even after-tax accounts sometimes that have built up taxable gains. What will those taxes be? Now, keep in mind, right now, we are at historic low tax rates. However, in 2025, these rates, at the end of 2025, these rates will expire. And while nobody knows what's going to happen to them, what's happened is in our industry, everybody, all the advisory world out there is clamoring to get in front of you with ideas on saving taxes, like these dinner seminars. Man, these things are ramped back up since the pandemic. In fact, a client handed me a dinner seminar invitation they received from another advisor recently and said, Tony, check this out. And basically, I'll just read it to you. It says basically so-and-so, how to lower and even eliminate, gotta love that, taxes in retirement. Of course, there's a really nice steak dinner that includes in this. Oh, by the way, this was funny. It says, the views, information, or opinions expressed during the events are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily represent those of the restaurant or its employees. I can't imagine the servers talking about 401k plans, but whatever. So anyway, I want to go through a few bullet points and how enticing not only a free steak might be, but the things this particular advisor is claiming to do, all right? Go through these bullet points real quick, Derek. First of all, what impact could the Biden tax plan have on your retirement? Basically, nobody really knows because we don't know what's going to happen until they expire and Congress acts on the law, so we don't know about that. Number two, market volatility. What investments can you potentially use now to protect yourself and your profits? I guarantee they're going to be talking about annuities there, so we already know the answer to that because annuities are protected, but that's fine. They're going to be talking about annuities. How can your income be tax-free? They're probably going to be talking about Roths. Be careful on that one because a lot of people are starting to sell what's called index universal life and borrowing from those policies for tax-free income. That could turn into a nightmare, and I can explain why that's a problem. Learn how to pass your IRA and 401k to future generations at lower tax burdens. Again, folks, the only way to do that is if they're in a lower bracket or if you start paying the taxes now and gifting those assets to your kids and grandkids now on a tax-free basis. So there's a lot of catches with that bullet point. How you can legally eliminate required distributions at 73. They're going to be talking about something called qualified charitable distributions or QCDs. Remember, when you do this, though, you have to give all of the money to charity. So none of that money is going in your pocket. This is a huge decision. Will you have enough money, retirement income, learn strategies, guaranteed lifetime income? We know what that's going to be. Again, they're going to be talking about annuities, how to help reduce investment risk in your portfolio. Again, probably fixed and fixed indexed annuities will be mentioned. Global economy, I love this one. What impact could the Russia-Ukraine crisis have on our economy? Now, this person knows the answer to that. They don't need to be hosting a dinner seminar at a steakhouse. They need to be running for president. Finally, inflation. Will your investment yields be able to keep up with rising inflation? Probably not. This is why I created something called the 3 halves of life, folks. The way inflation is running rampant, unless you're willing to take a lot of risk and speculate with your money, it's going to be very difficult to keep up with inflation. Again, this is why I wrote the book, Live Well, Die Broke. Folks, the financial world has tried to scare you to death with this notion that you're going to need more and more money in retirement to keep up with inflation. The reality is, and I've seen this in working with all of these people in retirement, is yes, inflation is real, but you will at some point, usually in the second half of life, spend less and less money. So don't worry about inflation, worry about protection, security, and if all else fails, make sure you have some of that beloved
mailbox money.
So my advice, folks, is don't go bowling alone. Get with an advisor such as Tony Walker Financial, who understands tax planning, retirement planning, and has the wherewithal to handle your assets not just now, but all the way through retirement. So to learn more about Tony Walker Financial, why don't you do this? Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. All right, stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
Realizing you are a big part of Tony Walker Financial, I am sure our audience is wondering, what happens to TWF when something happens to you?
This is true. In fact, years ago when I used to host public seminars, this was a frequent question from the audience. At the very end, they would always ask it, what happens to Tony Walker Financial when, not if, when something happens to you? And quite frankly, 10 years ago, I'm not sure if Tony Walker Financial would have survived if something were to happen to me. But now I feel very confident that Tony Walker Financial will survive and thrive whenever I can no longer do what I'm doing right now.
You always say that having a written retirement game plan in place first is more important than the financial product one might choose to invest in for retirement. Why is this written game plan so important?
Well, let me answer your question with a question. Would you ever take a road trip to a far-off destination without a road map? Well, neither should a saver enter the world of retirement without some sort of financial roadmap, which is what I've spent years to perfect. This proprietary software that no other advisor possesses, and I know this, Diane, because I created it. And not only do our clients get this free roadmap, our staff is there to guide savers along the way as changes are going to come their way in retirement. So it's a wonderful thing, and it is proprietary to Tony Walker Financial. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Our client spotlight today shines brightly on Mike and Dawn Bierman. First of all, Biermans, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I moved down here 2 years ago from outside Chicagoland area. Worked 37 years with Borg Warner Automotive.
I was a career RN. I worked 38 years as a nurse.
So basically, what prompted you to contact Tony Walker Financial and inevitably end up working with us?
Well, we were approaching 59 and a half, and we just really wanted to see where we stood and what our options were as far as our future.
And now that you're officially retired, actually you've picked up a part-time gig. Tell the audience what you're doing right now.
Yeah, we're doing school jobs, so we really enjoy it a lot. Only working
36 weeks a year.
here, yeah.
We're off at 2:30 every day. It's 16 weeks vacation. It's just a perfect setup for us.
And of course, since you haven't reached age 65, this new gig has really helped with the health insurance.
Absolutely.
And what have you enjoyed most about working with Tony Walker Financial?
From the minute we walked in the door, we felt comfortable. The options were laid out clear to us. It was explained thoroughly. We couldn't have asked for anything more.
Any thoughts, Mr. Bierman? And also a little bit about the game plan we provided you. Did that help in making your decision to formally retire and kind of, as you say, begin this new chapter?
Well, yes, definitely. Just how you had everything laid out and well organized. It was a game changer coming here.
Well, Biermans, thank you so much for working with Tony Walker Financial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Looking to roll over your 401k? Then log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and learn just how easy it is to roll over and safeguard your 401k. Do it today. In the year of our Lord 2000, author Robert Putnam wrote a book called Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of American Community. Truth be known, Putnam's book was actually based on his essay written in 1995, Bowling Alone, America's Declining Social Capital, which basically attempted to understand why more and more people were withdrawing from society and the meeting and gathering with other human beings, and, well, you get the picture, going out and bowling alone. Check it out the next time you're in public around a bunch of people. Are they truly interacting with one another, or are they interacting with the technology provided by their cell phones? You can see the effect of bowling alone and the ability through technology to avoid fellowshipping with others as the membership rolls of once heavily populated local civic clubs such as Rotary, Noon Lines, and the JCs are down tremendously. Back in 1978, aside from a single television located in Granddad's living room, which, by the way, received only 3 local channels, and a one phone sitting there for the ability for us to try to communicate around the world, which we didn't because of something called long-distance service, and our family, back then like other countless families, we interacted in person because that was the only way to do so. We spent countless hours on Granddad's front porch, and yep, we sat around just talking. We sat around speaking to one another, cracking jokes, making up stories, and finding out more about our family history. And you know what? I wouldn't trade those days for anything in the world. This practice of sitting around with other human beings and not having the luxury of gadgets and gizmos to do the interacting for us is something we call fellowship, which in my opinion has become a lost art. According to the Bible, face-to-face fellowship with others back then was essential, and it was an essential ingredient for the well-being of the people and, of course, holding on to their faith in God, especially when our fellowship with one another includes conversations about God, a practice known as worship. Now, in my humble opinion, one of the worst consequences of the disastrous government lockdown during the pandemic was prohibiting the fellowship of believers at church. And while the internet provided churchgoers the ability to sit at home and on their computers and watch a church service live, it neglected the essential element of worship, which is being physically present together, a practice that God encourages, as we see this in Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25, where he says this, "Let us not neglect meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. The key word here is encouraging. And I found that it is more easy to encourage others when you see them face to face. I see this in my practice all the time, as I see in person, on average, 30 savers a week. There really is something special and sometimes even powerful about communicating with people nose to nose, knees to knees, eyes to eyes, and of course, face to face, something technology cannot provide. The beauty of God's plan of worship and fellowship doesn't even have to be in a large church or group setting. Check it out, where in Matthew 18:20, Jesus says the following, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there also." I think what God is saying is this: our gathering together, no matter the number, is a picture of God gathering his children together so that we might get a glimpse now of what heaven will look like in the future when we are all worshiping together and fellowshipping with the Lord. And while bowling alone is fine, there are times when we all need fellowship with others in order that we might be encouraged and, of course, encourage others as well. Encouragement as we see God's Spirit play out in our lives and, of course, the lives of others. So whatever your reason for not fellowshipping with others might be, may I encourage you to try a little harder. Look for any opportunity to do so, whether it's one person or hundreds of people to fellowship with, because in the end, it will not only strengthen our faith, but draw us closer to God. And that's some good news you and I can take to the bank. Amen? Well, speaking of bowling alone when it comes to your finances, do you feel like maybe you're bowling it alone when it comes to this thing called retirement? Does it seem like the financial world is more interested in getting control of your money rather than really sitting down with you face to face to see what it is you want in retirement? Or are those same people like the couple I recently met who got sold a bill of goods only after handing over their money to the financial advisor, they haven't met with this person in face to face forever? Well, friend, it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, as the owner of Tony Walker Financial, assuming you're retired or retiring soon, I will personally meet with you to talk about your situation. And if for some reason I cannot, we have 3 highly trained financial fiduciaries that can. So here's your first step to meeting with me in person, face to face. We call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And to take advantage of this free offer, just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that little red button, and we'll arrange that phone call with yourself and myself to see if we can be of help. And then if we can, you and I are going to meet face-to-face, that's right, at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So do it now. Log on, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Or if the Internet's not your thing, call 24/7. We have a toll-free number. Operators are standing by. That number is 877-499-9255. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. We look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free and make it a good one.